It's Sunday night, 9 o'clock. Welcome to All Lacrosse Live. I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. With me, as always, I have Shawn Slaght over in Moose Jaw. How are you, Shawn?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, you doing all right?
I've come to terms with
Captain's especially not.
Victor Mathis. Yeah, he is what he is.
We've all been there, so don't worry. We could actually have a group, victims of Matt Vince.
Matt Vince Anonymous.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. And over in Connecticut, I have Muffler Mike Kostiuk. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
All right. 8-10 team will make the playoffs? Yes. Yeah. It won't be this 8-10 team. And of course, me, 5 minutes for what? Between that and,
Inconclusive.
My favorite terms. Mind you, we had more of those 5-minute calls that were reduced and, that shouldn't have been a penalty and became not a penalty. And nowadays, we just call them. We'll just let replay sort it out later. But Eduardo's with us, too. Look at that, Eduardo.
Yeah, Eduardo.
Yeah, we're in the warmth. I was telling Pat when I was on a show this morning that somebody had to explain to me what that fiery orange thing in the blue sky was. And, somebody told me it was the sun. It's been so long since I've seen it.
I know, right?
Because I thought the thing was on fire. But, we've turned a corner. It's only about -20 now here, but no more snow. So we're supposed to warm up to, like, spring-like temperatures, Canadian-wise. That's 25% less, But, hey. I think we're finally getting into that springtime thing. I have good feelings about this. Here comes about 11 feet of snow then, right?
You jinxed it now.
Oh, God, yeah. We had a busy week. Not a lot of games, but my God, a lot of activity. I thought the deadline was this week, the way things were moving for a while. My phone was going crazy over on Wednesday. It was just insane. But teams are trying to beat the Christmas rush and, pulling the plug and pulling the chute or trying to bolster up. We'll get into all of that in a minute or two. Remember that the real trade deadline for the NLL is March 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So there's still a bunch of time. There's still a bunch of moves to be made. But before we get rolling here, just to remind everybody that all of our episodes are streamed live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and also Instagram Live. Remember to hit the subscribe, follow, and like buttons. Always share. Please enjoy all of our affiliates. Pat Bernard Show, Tacking Third, Steel Steps, soccer and football shows. Lots of those coming up. CFL shows. And if you missed a show, no worries. You can catch all of our shows on YouTube, whether it be at Streampunk Sports, Streampunk Cinema, or All Across All the Time for us and all things to do with lacrosse, in which you can also find lots of retro games, more going up this week. So keep standing by. Early this week, there will be a couple of more going up. Interviews, press conferences, our library of shows, as well as the library of shows for the NLL Lacrosse Talk on Thursdays. They're now on the family as well. So, my show there is on our YouTube page as well. Remember, you can stay up to date with all sports by visiting streampunkentertainment.com. With great articles from our huge staff of contributors. Remember, this part of the show is brought to you by 60, Canada's newest and most exciting sports uniform and teamwear brand, delivering top quality uniforms and teamwear that reflects the spirit and identity of each team. Their commitment to innovation and excellence sets them apart, ensuring that every customer experiences the perfect blend of style and functionality. Unleash your greatness with 60. To get in touch with them, you can use the QR code that's on the screen. Or, if you want, go on to Instagram at sweet_60 and take a look at all their stuff there. And you can DM Jim from there. You can email him at info.sweet60@gmail.com or go on to their website and see everything that they have to offer at www.sweet60.ca/60. Also, remember, Lax Talk 10. Put that on your order, whichever place you order from, and get another 10% off your order. Important. Save it where you can. Lax Talk 10. All right. Well, since we have so much of the stuff going on, we got to get everything rolling. So let's get the ball rolling. Alrighty. Well, for the last couple of weeks, we've been starting off with very unhappy news. So I thought this week we go in a different direction and we start with some great news. And over in the Rochester family, both Riley Hutchcraft and Turner Evans are new papas. Congratulations to both of them. Nice to see life going into the world instead of leaving. So they're both our future NLLers. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I believe Turner's kids
Of
are
course.
doing laps and doing reps. So they were last seen with one of these. So using shotgun way of things. A reminder also for World Box Lacrosse, Women's Box Lacrosse Global Network, that they're putting together a tournament over in Vancouver, July 11th to 13th. And they're inviting all competitive all-star teams, top clubs, individual players to submit expression of interest to help them assess the interest and plan accordingly. You can do it on their Instagram, or you can go onto their website of Women's Box Lacrosse Global Network and fill it out there and send it to them. Now that we're into March, there's just 7 weeks. 7 weeks. And the Rubeski tournament will be back on over in Radisson, just outside of Prague, the 23rd to the 26th of April. I will be there. I will be looking forward to it. Yeah. Got to have myself a Pilsner Urquell. Yeah. Got to have some of those cups with the hooks. Love those things. Yeah. For the time being, though, I'll stick with a salty or a rock lager, but we gotta get that Pilsner Urquell. But this time, I'm not stopping to talk to anybody before my luggage makes it to the hotel. I'm not chasing a bus. I told you guys that story, right? We had arrived from the airport. We had dropped the equipment off at the field in Radisson, and of course they told us, half an hour, and we're going to get the stuff off, and then the bus is leaving. So I get off the bus to stretch my legs and go get a Pilsner Urquell. Who did I run into? I ran into, of course, Michelle Boyer, because She-Box was going on at that time, and Sue Redfern, president of World Lacrosse. And we're talking, and I look up, and I don't see a bus there. But I see my wife and my son just off to the side. And did you see the bus? No, did you see the bus had gone. So here I'm making phone calls to people on the bus. Can you please take my luggage off the bus and leave it in the lobby for when I get there? I'll be Ubering now. And I raced the bus back to the hotel and almost beat it there, but didn't quite. But it was there. So that was how my trip started last year. So, not chasing luggage this year. All right, so let's get on to things. We had a bunch of trades, a bunch of moves, and repercussions of things and how that worked. First and foremost, we had rumors of Nick Rose, and everybody in Toronto went, yeah, sure. First trade. Well, Nick Rose and Tyler Hendricks went to Calgary with a 4th-round pick, and Toronto received Calgary's 1st-round pick for 2026, the ultimately stacked draft. Also, Robert Hudson and Goa Abrams. So my guess is that Troy Holochuk is the new starting goalie here in Toronto. But that isn't where it ended. Not long after that did we see a notice that Philadelphia got into the mix, and Paul Day was looking to get himself a transition game. So he traded his 1st-round pick for 2025 to Toronto. In exchange, he got Mitch Desnew and Chris Corbeil. Pretty good deal. Hence me having the Chris Corbeil jersey over my head. But we didn't stop there. Holden Cantoni was on the move over from Philadelphia to Las Vegas, and in return, Shane Simpson became a Philadelphia wing, which now finishes off the transition game there. All of a sudden, they have a smoking transition game. They also have a hard-nosed defense. And, I love the trades. But here's the thing. nobody can say that Jamie isn't a little bit smart on this one, because everybody he traded, with the exception of Tyler Hendricks, is an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. So in essence, he has sent the rent-a-player over and can get all of them back, or some of them back, or whatever he wants back, or none of them back, depending, and got all their first-round picks for it. Pretty shrewd for a team that is not going to make the playoffs. For them to make the playoffs, they basically would have to go 6-1 down the stretch. And looking at their schedule, if they go 3-3, I would say that there is a God in heaven. So, just not in the cards this year. But know when to fish and know when to cut bait. And that's it. I still don't think they're finished. I think there's still a couple of little things to go to try and give guys an opportunity to win this year. And Brad Cree's name keeps coming up in conversation. Don't know, but he didn't make it on that day. But let's see. But that wasn't it for trades. San Diego got involved with Albany, and San Diego traded Kyle Jackson to Albany, and in return got the 4th-round pick for 2025 and a 2nd-round pick for 2026. And they added themselves into the. Now remember, like I said before, March 10th. That's still 8 days away for the trade deadline. So some of the other teams who might be buyers might still be on the phones with guys going, hey, how much for? And that plays right into hands of Vegas, Toronto, Albany to bolster within reason. But just to add to what Toronto's notorious for not having any first, maybe any 2nd-round picks. Well, this is what they have for the next 2 drafts. Let's also remember that their 1st-round pick last year was Sam English, who had another year of collegiate eligibility and is using it, so he's not playing this year. So in 2025, Sam English, 1st-round pick of last year's draft, will join the Toronto Rock as well. In 2025, they have their 1st-round pick, Vegas's 1st-round pick, which in all essence might even be number 1 and pick number 2, the way things are going, and Philadelphia's 1st-round pick, and they have a tough schedule too. So theirs isn't going to be too deep down the line either, from what I can see. They have a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and then 5th and 6th-round picks where, maybe there's that Tom Brady in the crowd, but I doubt it. 2026 is the listed as the most stacked draft in years. And they have a 1st-round pick, which is Calgary's, 2 2nd-round picks, both going to be high picks, I think, at this stage. 3rd-round picks, a pair of them as well, 4th, 5th, and 6th. But I've got a feeling they'll be adding to that before it's all said and done. So they can change the whole face of this organization in the next 2 drafts. In fact, you may not even recognize it. You may have to get a program because it's going to be moving. It's interesting. I like what Philadelphia did, guys. You have a defensive coach who made his money as a transition player, Pat McCready. And now you have 4 guys there that are bona fide transition guys. Mike, let's start with you. Your thoughts on the trades that just happened this week and anything that interests you for what's upcoming.
Yeah, the only one that maybe baffles me a bit is the Albany trade for Kyle Jackson, because it just makes me wonder what is going on with Marshall Powless.
Yeah, he is on a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, obviously they have Dyson Williams, they have Ethan Walker, they have Sam Firth. I don't think any of those guys are going anywhere. So, I mean, adding to the depth certainly is a help on the left side, especially after they had to, unload Eric Fennell. But I don't know. It seems like they maybe if they, if they're of the same mindset as Toronto over in Albany, that, hey, at this point it's probably not happening because they need to go. What are they, 3-9 now? So they need to go pretty much 5-1 or 6-0 to have any sort of shot.
Yeah, because they don't have any tie breaks with anybody, really.
Yeah. So I don't know. The trade baffles me a bit.
What do you think
unless
about
they're
Philadelphia,
just
what they
trying-
did?
I think what Philadelphia did was great. So I think just from a physicality standpoint, mostly, even more so than
Well, it's
transition.
something we've been harping on for weeks here, isn't it? About
Oh,
Philadelphia's defense being
weeks.
soft. Well, Sean, you brought it
Yeah,
up.
I was going to say years.
But specifically this year, where we thought they had some of these problems rectified, and it turned out it reared its ugly head back about 4 or 5 games ago, and hasn't since left. So, Sean, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying with Philadelphia. I mean, like I said, it's been at least the last couple of years where we've been harping on Philadelphia's defense and how many shots they've been giving up to sort of bring in the likes of Desnu and Corbeil. Just right there solves your problem, really. And yeah, I agree with you too. With what Jamie did was just genius because, like you said, most of these guys are more than likely rental players that you can probably get back. I mean, we know at least Nick Rose's, connections with track and stuff like that. So unless something drastic happens, he's probably likely, I'm going to think, back in Toronto next year.
Well, what's funny is that he's still working there, right? So
yeah. So I mean, he has those connections, right? So I couldn't see him not going back. And I'm with Mike. I thought the one trade that baffled me was that San Diego Albany one too, for the fact that San Diego gave up a player for draft picks, almost like they're sellers in a way, and they're still quite in that playoff mix. So that is a little bit of a head scratcher to me. I'm not saying that they were like selling the whole farm type of thing in what they did, but it still seemed a little bit off.
right. Yeah, it's a little strange, but they have been trying to get younger. So I don't know what they're doing, or if it was an expendable piece that just wasn't going to get in there. Because if they're going to put youth in there and keep the other ones together, it's going to be a little weird. We have another guest with us, and I'm going to bring Caden in. Hi, Caden. How does it?
How about no?
Not it. I'm okay.
We're just talking about the trades, and of course, you guys made a splash.
Wow.
Getting
How big a
Jackson.
splash? It was about like throwing a pebble.
A
in a
little
lake.
ripple. You guys made a ripple. We made a splash.
Something like
Made a
that.
ripple.
Yeah.
You might as well just send over your first round pick to us, and we're just taking everybody's first round pick now. We actually plan on having the entire 2025 draft. First round is just going to be Toronto picks and Toronto picks and Toronto picks, followed by Toronto picks, and Toronto's on the clock now because Toronto's going to be picking next. So
And
that's the
don't
goal.
forget after that, Toronto picks again.
Yeah. And then we're going to re-sign all the guys that we just sent away and trade them again and try and get more stuff. 26 one. We're going to see how many times we can get your draft picks for these guys. It's just going to be like what was your claim to fame? Well, I played for 7 different teams, but really only played like 1 game for each of them and came back to Toronto and played the rest of my season. But I kept playing with all these first round junior draft picks. The most amazing thing. We had an all-star team by the time I was done my career. Anyways, before we get into doing some of the other stuff, just some little tidbits here. Sorry, Sean. Dane Smith now is 10th on all-time points with 1,167 with the 5 that he got yesterday. Well, they only got like 7, right?
Only 5.
Amazing.
For Dane, only 5.
Yeah, for Dane, that's a slow night.
Yeah.
Game then. Cody Jamieson has 350 career goals. He had a pair last night. Both beauties, too. Both beauties. Nothing cheap. Now, Nick Rose, he didn't have a stellar evening last night for Calgary. He's learning what it's like to have a smaller defense in front of him. But he didn't have a bad night. He made a lot of saves, but he went over the 7,000 career save mark. Not bad.
Yeah, I believe he's only the 3rd goalie.
Yep, but he's only, 3,500 away from Matt Mintz now. Isn't that retarded?
Yeah.
That just shows you what you're up against. I don't know, Caden, did you want to join our little group there where we're going to put a little group where we can commiserate together victims of Matt Vince? Yeah, we're going to have an emblem of everything on there. And,
soon I'll be a victim of Matt Vin yet again, but we'll see how the next couple weeks plan out.
we have to find the address because it's going to be number 48 on any main street.
I'm gonna be in a lot of pain, I know, leading up to those weeks, barring hopefully some comebacks from us.
All right. Now, just before we get going on that, MSL, it's almost summer, guys. It's only minus 20 here, so it's almost summer. But the snow stopped. So I was telling him, Caden, earlier this morning when I was on with Pat, I had to have somebody explain to me what the orange ball in the sky was because I thought it was on fire because it's been so long since I've seen the sun. But opening week starts Victoria Day Monday here in Canada, May the 19th, where Brampton faces Six Nations over at the ILA. And that week, Peterborough is over into Brooklyn at Iroquois Sports Park on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, Coburg and Owen Sound face off. Or that's on the Sunday, I'm sorry. And then on the Monday, Brooklyn goes over into the Toronto Rock Athletic Center and play the Oakville Rock, which will have some of the players that are not with the Toronto Rock anymore. It'll be an interesting time. They can reintroduce themselves. By the way, guys, you know who the general manager is of the Oakville Rock? That's right. It's Steve Dietrich. That makes it interesting, too. So I wonder if they all have bragging rights in there for who does better. Nothing is interesting.
I did better. No, I did better.
Well, Prairie Tim's with you, Shawn.
Thanks. We have to stick together here.
And I also picked the Rush. But then I also realized, why do I ever pick against Buffalo? I said it before. I'll say it again. Don't choose against Buffalo.
I knew I was going on a limb too.
5-0. That bolted me into first place with us, just barely. But that's after a couple of really miserable weeks. So this was a really breath of fresh air. But Kate, even there in last, you're still 500, man. You're still doing fine.
6 games out. Yep.
Yeah,
so.
I just need a perfect 5-0 next week.
See, things happen quickly.
You want to see what a good week can do for anybody? It's Lax class. Who you got? I won that in week 10, but this time around I went 5-0, and I moved up 11 spots. I'm in number 2 now.
Oh,
so look out. Evan Schemenauer edged me out in the tie break for winning this week. There were 20 guys in this that had 5-0.
Oh, jeez.
And Evan had the closest to the 14-goal total for the final one there. Just quickly before, because I know Caden's got to jump out soon, but just the Arena Lacrosse League had 4 games going off this weekend, and some pretty big games in here. Ironically, the power rankings did not move this week because of everybody who's supposed to win won. The Whitby Steelhawks beat the Oshawa Outlaws 15-8. The Brampton Express beat the Peterborough Timbermen 19-9. The Toronto Monarchs over at the ILA this afternoon beat the Oswego Bears 17-9. And the Six Nations Snipers beat the Paris River Wolves 14-10, which leave us with our power rankings. That Whitby is still sitting number 1, Brampton number 2. Then we have a cluster of 4 teams with 6-6 records. Toronto, then Six Nations, then Paris, and then Peterborough. Oshawa's in 7th place in the power rankings, and Oswego coming up in 8th place with a 1-11 record. Having a rough year. Alrighty. So, what went right and what went wrong, Caden? Talk to us. Because 14-7 to Rochester. Ryan Smith with 4 goals, 3 assists. Williams nets a hat trick though. He's feeling his way there. So there's your prize.
Yeah. What's a bright spot is Dyson putting up the 4 points, 8 shots on goal as well. So, him consistently contributing into the offense at least 3 points each week is good. It's just, a constant proving of why he should have been the first overall pick. I guess to start with, getting outshot 66-43 isn't good. I mean, that's where you start. Getting outshot that bad, going scoreless in the first quarter, that doesn't help as well. You can't blame Dougie because he puts up 50 saves in a game like that where they were down the entire night. Like they were out of it. The offense wasn't doing anything. I mean, the goals here is a goal from Alex, 3 goals from Dyson, a goal from Sam, a goal from Will, and a goal from Colton in transition. So, I mean, only 5 goal scorers. That's not ideal. I granted Dyson with the hat trick, but still, only 5 different goal scorers.
That's not going to do it.
Like,
No.
the Kyle Jackson trade is an interesting idea because, like you were saying, Mike, what's going to be going on with Marshall? Is Marshall still going to be kind of holding out? Or is there going to be a trade with Marshall coming up soon? That's why they wanted to go pick up Kyle Jackson now, have him kind of get integrated in with the system. I'm excited to see what Kyle will do. I don't know if he'll get in against Philadelphia. I kind of highly doubt it, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see him against Georgia when they're back home. And kind of like
Aldous liked it in Albany.
Yeah, he definitely does, but I feel like in a case like this, give him to a team that has a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Shawn, you have any first round picks?
And we had Marshall. We gave him to you guys.
But it's just something like those are just things that, like Mike was saying, what's going on with Marshall. And again, haven't seen Callum since his first game in Albany. Kind of just
now you understand why Philadelphia cut him. Now you understand why he's been with 11 teams or whatever.
And then on the Rochester side, I mean, Ryan Smith, he killed us. 4 goals, 3 assists. He was the killer. And then Connor Fields right after that, 2 goals and 5 assists. So 7 points to those 2 guys isn't ideal.
I would also discuss probably Ryland Hartley.
I was about to, 36 saves from Hartley. He looked fantastic. Especially in for Hutchcraft, who was out for the week, obviously. So really stepped up when it mattered.
Yeah, it's good to see him healthy. He is a spectacular goalie when he's 100%. But he will kill and dash hopes and dreams. And Albany's healthy now, right?
Besides the Callum, I'm not mistaken. I have my notes over I have the whole thing, but it's Colton's back, Jackson's back. The only one I can really think of would be Marshall, who's on the holdout list, and then Callum, who's been kind of sitting on the injury list.
Mm-hmm.
But they are a majority healthy. A lot of it could just be, chemistry. It's Alex mentioned it, that it's a sophomore slump, is that everybody expects them to be a lot better than what they truly are. Is that, obviously a run to the finals last season would put a lot of hopes into the minds of fans of Albany that, we just went to the finals, we're going to go to the finals again.
Especially when you add Dyson Williams to it. So you added to it with a super player.
Yeah.
It went backwards 18 steps.
And I mean, obviously, Gary, you mentioned it at the start of the season that they were your pick to win it all.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, I mean, it wasn't like a far cry to think that Albany could win it, especially how they played last season and adding Dyson, Dougie continuously adding. But a lot of it could be Dougie playing a lot in the offseason. Like we talked about it with Warren Hill and Halifax, how Warren Hill played a lot. Hill got the 1 week off rest when they played Hutchinson, and then he's been lights out since. And again, I just kind of...
Is it time to sit Dougie for a game?
That's what I'm wondering. Do they sit him against Philadelphia? Do you see a chance to see Kid versus Not in Philadelphia?
That would be great. That would bring me to Senior B in my summer.
So
which I watched last year and watched that particular matchup.
But then, Mike, you always kind of speak to the choir about not starting a backup on the road. That brings them. Do you start Kid against Georgia? If you play Dougie against Philadelphia next week or this upcoming week, next week you have Georgia back at home. Is that when you start Kid? Or like their next home game?
Do you think that maybe by that time it won't matter?
Well, I feel like at a 3-9 situation right now, it really doesn't matter in that case. So
if it's 3-10 or 3-11, will it matter? No. Because it's not a playoff thing.
Well, once you hit 11 losses, you're not making the playoffs.
You're not making playoffs.
We're 100% certain on that.
Like Albany could definitely sneak away with a win against Philadelphia because they did it again. They did it at home, and now they're just going on the road. They can do it.
Philadelphia now has a transition game.
And that's the issue, is that Philadelphia knew what they needed. They got better. Albany kind of just hasn't done much because there's not a need to do anything from where they're sitting at.
Exactly. They're sellers. They need to take a look at what they can do to retool or stand pats. One of the two. I wouldn't be so quick to jump the gun because there's a lot of really good young talent. And if the year just isn't the year, there's no reason to dump everybody all over the place and try and rebuild with young talent since you have it.
I mean, the owner has spoken to the choir about this. Coach Karki has spoken to the choir about this. All the players have spoken to the choir about this in the case that the youth is there, the team is there. It's just getting them on the right track. Like everything is there. They have the youth, they have the depth, they have the skill players. They could beef up. Obviously, I mean, the whole thing with Eric Fennell in the offseason was beefing up their offense and getting guys to protect, which is one thing they could obviously really do. But it could be a sense of grabbing some guys to protect, but they still have everybody they need. They have the leadership. They have the skillful scoring. They have a top 3 goaltender when he's on in the league. They have arguably the best coach in the league. I mean, obviously last year's standpoint, he was winning coach of the year. So, so everything is there, and it's a year off, and jumping to conclusions and jumping to a situation of we have to sell everything is not where we need to go.
Right. I have another thing too. If anybody doesn't think that resting your goalie isn't important, take a look at Buffalo. Matt Vince, for the first time, didn't play summer ball at all. Didn't play for Peterborough. Didn't do anything. Rested and spent it with his kids and his family. He came back this year in better shape and better form than I've seen him in years, and rested. We're midway through the year. He doesn't look like he's at all gassed. And they're in the middle of this ridiculous 12 games in 10 weeks thing after, game by game by game by. Yeah. So, this is a big thing of making sure your goal is rested. Warren Hill proved it also. Give him a week. Let him just clear his head. And, there you are. And he's back on track.
I wonder if Dougie looks at Matt Vince this season and says, maybe I don't play summer ball upcoming. Maybe I, just relax in the off season and practice, work out, but come back fully ready to go.
I don't know about that one for 6 Nations.
Yeah, that might. That's gonna be a tough sell. He's gonna. You have to remember that he's gonna get rest playing summer ball with the Six Nations because they've generally been alternating.
Yeah, they
him
platoon with
and
Warren
Warren
Hill.
Hill.
Right?
With Hill, yeah.
Yeah. And,
That's true.
2-time Man Cup champions now, so going for 3.
All right, we're going to put Caden in his corner because I'm going to bring on Mr. Bernard. Pat, you're looking well. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Hours.
Hey, it's been a very, very long time,
His
Gary.
smile, though. You notice that? Pat found his smile. There's none of the stuff around his eyes. Those squinting, and the vein has gone back in his forehead. All that stuff. It's amazing what a couple of trades and a little bit of transition can do for you.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, Paul Day is a man that's not going to sit on his rump. I within a whole calendar year, you guys, Shawn, Muffler, Mike, have known I've come on this show complaining about Mr. Day and the lack of production from this guy. But as him as just the general manager, he's earned my respect. He's earned his stripes with me. I mean, this man does not sit around and he takes care of action. And listen, when you lose 5 out of 6 games, you force the hand. And now with him not being a coach, he doesn't build those relationships. He's not buddy with the guys in the locker room. He's here to do business. He wants to make the playoffs. If, ands, and buts, and he's going to cut butts and ship them out of here if you're not going to live up to par. And you see the whole Catoli, see you. You're out. Get out of here. Pack your bags. You're gone. He wants to make the playoffs, and I respect that. I can respect that. Hey, Vegas, here, you're bottom feeder. Take this guy.
Otherwise, Vegas might have gotten shut out last night if Tony wasn't in the lineup. So
right,
yeah.
And it's just amazing to me, how he's going to shake up this lineup once again to wake up that locker room, and he's here to he's here for a job. He's here to bring Philadelphia lacrosse for like you said this morning, Gary. It's been a long time since Philly got the team lacrosse playoffs, and he's here to do that.
Absolutely. So, what do you see in this game coming up, Pat, with Albany?
This was the perfect time to make the trades because you're on a bye week. You get the time. You get the time to build the team chemistry within going through practice, getting to meet Mitch, Dean Snood, and Shane Simpson. You get to meet those guys. And Chris Cornell, you get it's time for the guys to get to meet the players, them kind of feel each other out, get to know their strengths, their positives and weaknesses, their strengths and weaknesses rather. But yeah, I like this game. I very much like this game. This is going to be a wake up. So this is the Wings are going to come out with their hair on fire. So we'll see what happens.
A lot of leadership in that dressing room now too.
Mm-hmm. And something I will say I'm not looking forward to is we already had to play this new once earlier this season, and last season this new was a huge problem for Albany. And the only one game they played him, he wasn't a factor at all. And now you jump over to this week, and now it's going to be his first real shot at Albany. He's always been an Albany killer.
Yeah, and listen, he leads the defenseman in points or in goals. He's second in points. I mean, so he can throw the rock if he wants to too. So he's going to be a tough customer. And what you're saying, Caden, if he's already giving you problems already and getting to this lineup, it can only smell trouble from the Firewoods. But, it's just, to me, it's how the Philadelphia Wings are going to respond as a whole with this shakeup that came. So, but this just tells me, tells the Mitch Jones of the world, the Joe Russitarians, hey, listen, if I got Paul Day, like I said, now playing that GM role, you're not going to live up the part. You'll be next on the bubble.
And, like you said, it not only does it spell trouble for Albany, but if this works out, it's going to spell trouble for the whole league. Because if they're getting to snoo on that whole defensive and transition run, now they're going to let Brennan do his thing. Now they're going to let Blaze do his thing. Now they're going to let everybody do their thing, like Mitch Jones do his thing. They're going to let everybody finally be able to do their thing and not worry about, I have to run back on defense, but just Snoo's going to be out there and he's like, all right, I'm here. Get past me.
Well, I want to put something out there for you guys to watch in the next couple of games. Is how many, now that the transition game is up to snuff with 4 guys that can do it well, how many illegal substitution penalties get called against opponents of Philadelphia because guys are disheveled and can't sit and just kind of saunter off the bench? They're going to be rushing out the bench because they don't know if the Snoo or Corbeil or Simpson or any of them are going to be, running up or pulling back. And while they don't know, that second that they jump early, they're getting called.
And the Firewolves have had issues with those illegal substitution penalties this season earlier on. And as you know, every team has that issue. But that is something that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out this week against Philadelphia, is how many we truly do take, or if Clarkey is going to be on top of them being like, hey, make sure you're watching your men, make sure you're watching your guy, because you don't want to take these penalties that we can easily avoid.
And it's funny too, because you and I talked this morning too, Gary, about, like you said, about those guys quickly jumping on and off sides, and too many, that could lead to too many guys on the field. But it's weird because I like what Paul Day has done. Like, he took on this problem. Like, he knew about these guys and some of their deficiencies, but some reason he feels that they can fall in line what he's trying to build here and the culture and all that stuff. So, and like I said, previous to those guys coming here, Philadelphia Wings, again, to Caden's point, Firewolves aren't one of those teams who make their trip to Sin Bin a lot. The Wings are right there. I mean, was it one of the last game they faced on the back-to-back versus the Thunderbirds? They made 10 trips to the penalty box. 10. Like, now all shakes out.
Right. Also, with these guys, I think Shawn could speak to it with Chris Corbeil, since you saw him during the championship years.
Yeah.
I got a chance to see him through the injured years here in Toronto. What kind of leader he is.
I mean, he was the captain of the team during those years, right?
Yep.
He was the leader in that locker room during those championship years in Saskatchewan. And I mean, he could do everything, whether it was transition. He was just a steady, stay-at-home defenseman if you needed it. And yeah, I mean, he was the guy.
Yeah. And you throw that with the meanness of Mitch DeSnoo, and also the prowess of scoring. And Paul Day certainly picked up a couple of good guys for this season. Whether they stick around at the end of the season is a whole other thing. But also, it being a home game, they can gravitate towards the fans. Remember, I said this morning, Mitch DeSnoo is actually a product of Drexel, so he's pretty aware of what's going on in the Philadelphia area. So, you okay with this, Pat?
So that.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm lying. I don't know why I lagged.
He's going to be playing.
Yeah, I don't know why I lagged so bad right there, but yeah, it's it's like I said, he knows the crowd. It's going to be fun and dandy. But like I said, it's make a statement in this game against the Firewolves, build some momentum, build some team chemistry. Enjoy if you can pull out the win. Enjoy it, because the rest of the schedule is not going to get easier. Yeah, you have the Toronto Rock coming up, but after that, you got Zach Higgins coming in here. He's going to want to make a statement. Then you got 2 back-to-back against Georgia, and then you finish up against Vancouver. So a team that's also looking to get in the playoffs. So this right now is for the Philadelphia Wings is the playoffs right now from here on out. Like, you've seen it between them, San Diego. There's a bunch of teams with 5 wins. So there's a bunch of teams that are still in the mix there, and there's a bunch of teams that are trying to hang in there. And like I said, Paul Day is trying to make that statement. He wants to make a run here in Philly. He believes in this team. He believes that they can make make some noise in the playoffs. But in order to do that, they got to handle business that's in front of them and take it one day at a time.
Right. Now, don't think that Jamie's a dummy, because say these are unrestricted free agents. He can get them all back, including Nick Rose, at the end of the year. But also, while we're sitting there and watching some of these things happen to a depleted Rock team, he gets a percentage of concessions, and he also has the deal with the brewery. So while we're doing these, off our nerve, he's just laughing to the bank. So he's making his money back for a smaller stadium this year because of that. But in all seriousness, Toronto isn't going to be all that depleted, really, because we mentioned it before. Jake Darlison is a first-round pick that he's going to be in the lineup for a defenseman. Zach Kearney, I believe, is a second-round pick. He's going to be in the lineup, a little small. He's a transition guy. You have Troy Holochuk, who is chomping at the bit to get his chance of being in net, and he'd relieved Nick Rose a number of times already this year and looked pretty good. And you got Goa. So, you got a pretty solid backup guy, too. So it's not they're just going to walk over Toronto. It's still going to be tough sledding, and you still have the nucleus in there. So it's still going to be a game here.
And one of the things I do want to see, though, if Nick Demu falls short again, will it be time to bring in Deacon Knock? I think it would be time to bring in Deacon Knock. Look, you already made the shake up. Start fresh with another goalie. Yeah, and the offense has to answer the bell. The offense has to step up here. You have to get it clicking like you've done it in the first half of the season, where you're winning big time, putting up some major points. I mean, the Brandon O'Neill's has to contribute a little bit more. Phil Caputo has been hot, but he's just a role player. You have to get Mitch Jones, and you have to get Joe Russell-Terrence scoring at least 6 or 7 goals or close to it in a game.
Hey,
they have to play.
Maybe if you give up your 2026 first-round pick, you can get Higgins back from Ottawa.
Let's pump the brakes just a little bit. Let's pump the brakes.
You don't have to pump the brakes, because when Rich Lisk picks up the phone and hears that, he's going to go click.
Yeah.
Well, first, Mike, you'll hear a lot of laughing on the other end of the line. Then you'll hear the click.
But it did come over on a platter, so it was like, that was too easy.
Yeah, is that Pat Bernard guy still beer reporting for you guys?
Yeah. Pat, you mentioned the possibility of not starting. I don't know if you saw when me and Gary were talking about it before you jumped in, how Dougie making 50 saves in the Rochester loss is great, but at some point, do they swap to Deacon Knott? To Andrew Kidd? And I wondered, could we possibly see Andrew Kidd versus Deacon Knott this weekend?
I would hope so, Caden. I want to say Deacon Knott get the start. Nothing to take anything from Demu, but in these losses, he's shown some in spots where some gray areas that need to be worked on. And one's like, again, I mentioned, and I see a lot of goalies struggling with the low pass or low shot that sweeps by them. I've seen a lot of players now do that. A lot of players are now following through with that one. But there are some spots where he's slow he's a little too slow to get back on his feet. So like I said, he does show a lot of Nick Demu shows a little bit too many gray areas in his game. But I do want to see Deacon Knott get the start. Like I said, this would be a complete refresher. And this, you got some new pieces coming into your game. And like I said, I want to see the offense, to me, needs to start answering the bell and start stepping up here. Like I said, great for the
Deacon for a number of years.
Right?
I've known Deacon for a number of years, and it's not a slouch you're putting in there. You're putting in a junior gold medalist for Canada. You're putting in a guy who has played for Brooklyn in Senior B, plays for the Peterborough Lakers Senior A as a backup and relieving, because him and Kells were part of that Laker team last year. He's a solid goalie. Played for the Oshawa Outlaws in the NLL also in the year where they started, I think, 10-0. And then, of course, that team got depleted because the NLL picked and choose when guys are hurt. So, you go from first to worst because you have nobody left. And it just happened to be around playoff time. But he's a solid goalie
too, right?
Yep.
So.
So he's a goalie that is going to be the future in Philadelphia. Right now, it's just kind of hang on until he's matured enough and got ready and seeing the shots at the speed that they're coming, because there's a big difference between junior and senior.
Oh yeah, and I wonder if now, at least in goal, the future is now. Like if not, because not looked very good against Albany when he had to come in for relief for Demuth. If he plays well this week against Albany, especially with the additions that Philadelphia made to their roster, he could just be a permanent start.
And you know what, like Caden, I agree to a certain extent too, and the only reason why we're having this discussion because we again the shakeup. But however, the problem relies in front of the goalie. It doesn't matter who's there because the defense sometimes I've seen in the most recent games not picking up the loose changes, missing assignments, sticking to the man-to-man coverages, and they look like they get lost in the sauce. So whether you go Nick Demu, Deacon Knock, it's the problem that's in front of those guys, and it always leads to a lot of trouble. And that's where I'm getting concerned about. And especially, again, with this team constantly going to the penalty box, leaning to the power play and the short, being shorthanded all the time is going to sting. It's going to sting. So I would give it, go for the experience. Maybe, again, that wakes up this Philadelphia team. But if it's not, and it looks like it's the same problem from last year, it's the defense. And it's not the coaching. It may just be the talent that's on the field.
I'll counter that, Pat, and say Paul Days went out and tried to solve that issue now on the defense by picking up a Desnu and a Corbeil to kind of solidify that. So maybe we see a completely different defense now in front of their goaltending.
Good point. That's a good point.
Because both of those guys are going to be the kind of guys who are going to soak up shots.
Oh yeah,
and that is where the only case where I'd be like, all right, now we have those guys. We have the Corbeil. We have the Desnu. Now let's see what they do in front of Demuth.
Right, and if Demuth lets up a couple of goals, a couple of ugly ones, yeah, then that's when it's time to make the switch and go from there and make this now the Deacon Knock era and just ride it out and see where he goes from there. So, but yeah, listen, now you're taking care of the defense side of the ball. Now it's time to, now you take care of the transition side of the ball, and now your offense, has to start answering. It has to come through. I mean, Mitch Jones and Joe Russell-Terrence, top 5 guys in facilitating the ball, but they have to start scoring. They have to start scoring. And not just them, the Blaze Ruins have to start stepping up and other guys as well.
Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting game to watch this week. A lot of things as side things to watch, as well as to what the score is. So it's going to be interesting. Well, guys, thank you very much for jumping on with us, and looking forward to seeing y'all next week. And we'll have to keep you in further corners than just middle to end.
Listen, if this turns into an ugly slop fest like it did last week, then I think we will both be popping onto the show with bags over our faces. So I think we can come to an agreement somewhere.
Absolutely. The happy median will be there, but it's going to be interesting. And I got a feeling that all these teams aren't finished yet. So the lineup that we're looking at right now and what we might see at game time and just past it, because remember, the trade deadline is a couple of days after next weekend's games. By the way, y'all, Eastern doesn't affect Shawn, but daylight savings hits next weekend. So
yeah. I do want to ask one question before I roll out here. So now we're almost at the halfway point, though. What's your take on Ian Rubel as a head coach? You've seen the pluses. Now the team's struggling. There was some negatives. Where do you see him as of right now? What kind of grade would you give him?
He has kept everything pretty much cohesive and amidst all this influx that's going on. So it's could have gone a whole lot more sideways like years past. So I think as the calming force in keeping everybody on the same page, I think he's done a pretty good job. Moving forward, I don't think he's going to outcoach many people right now, but I don't think he's really had the opportunity to. I'm more curious now with a transition game, letting Kostiuk run the offense, and letting, of course, McCready run the defense, and see where it all fits there and all the grand scheme of things.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I'm sure he had input too in these deals with Paul.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not aware of their deficiencies. I mean, if you've got to, I think if you've got to assign a grade to him, it's got to be at least a B-.
Yeah, I was going around that B as well because I'm feeling like they didn't take steps backwards, but they didn't really take steps forwards as of yet. I think the judge is still out on that because of these moves they just recently made.
Yeah. But I mean, given their remaining, I know Pat, mentioned the remaining schedule. I've seen some of the other. You guys have seen all the schedules now, but some of the other teams' remaining schedules are definitely a little tougher than Philly's. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to go 5-2 and then 10-8, which is most likely a playoff spot. So,
I have to agree. Like, I'd probably put him at like a C+ to a B around that area. Like you said, Gary, it could have gotten a whole lot worse than it already is. So for him to kind of keep them stable, to keep them at the spot that they are, it is on the coach on that spot. He's keeping them level headed.
And unlike other years, they were proactive to try and fix it.
Yeah.
Whereas other years they just let it slide until the end of the year and then try to address it there. So we're trying to make it for the fans and for the players, this to be a big run. So we'll see if it all pays dividends. I think it does. I like the move.
I'm a big fan of this new trade. I won't lie.
Yeah, well, listen, it's going to be funny to see how they adapt to Ian Rubel's system and what he's got dialed up. And like I said, Saturday and is going to be a huge game for both teams. Whether the Firewolves come out and just beat the brakes off this team and because they want to get revenge off this Rochester loss, or the Philadelphia Wings decide they want to show up. We'll see what happens. But guys, I got to roll.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. Caden, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
And we will see you guys next week. All righty. That's that in a nutshell. That covers just about everything we could possibly cover with those trades. Let's move on. Friday night we had one more game, and we talked about the Black Bears already, and they've fallen on some hard times. And of course, Georgia beat them 15-9. Georgia's starting to find themselves again. So this is what puts the league on notice. I'm starting to see the Georgia team that we were talking about in the first couple of weeks. They have since returned. And one of the things that stood out to me is a healthy Miles Thompson. With him there on the left side, all of a sudden Shane Jackson has become more of a focal point of the offense because people are leaving him alone. Brian Cole has become more of a focal point of the offense because people are leaving him alone. So Lyle and Miles are taking most of their attention, which opens up rows for this thing. Shane Jackson, he had 4 assists in this game. Again, a big-time game for him, the last 2. The other one is on defense, Hickey. He has only played a couple of games now, Jacob Hickey, but has looked solid on defense for Georgia. And, just a little tweak here and a little thing there, and all of a sudden, things look great. Torrin Eccleston, again, looking good. Thought he was going to be seriously hurt at one point, but he come up not too happy. But he made it through the end of the game, but he had another monster game, even though he didn't score. But just doing all the other things off ball. Seth Oakes is looking like he's back in the mix again with 3 goals in this game. This is scary when these guys are all healthy and playing well. Because again, Brian Cole doesn't have to do 3-4 goals. But his size and with his hands, he's able to facilitate a lot of things around there too. And then, of course, you have the Brendan Bomberys. Of course, Lyle and Miles we talked about. Caleb Benedict, he in and out of the lineup. He wasn't in this lineup, but down the stretch he should be again. He's looked good in all the games he's played. But Brett Dobson, he's looked fantastic the last couple of games in saving the bacon of the Georgia defense. Even though they're giving up a lot of shots, but a lot of them are not high percentage shots. They're blocking off the inside, making you pay, kind of like Buffalo. And the shots are coming from outside for the most part. And Dobson's able to see him. Dobson's able to save him. It's like Dallas Alec always said, right? If I can see it, I can save it. And they're giving him that opportunity. But this was a pretty strange game because Ottawa looked good off the hop. 33 seconds in, and Connor Kiernan already made it 1-0. Jacob Dunbar made it 2-0, and we're not even a minute and a bit into the game. All of a sudden, Georgia woke up. I talked about Shane Jackson. Well, he made it 2-1. Andrew Q, someone who's gone under the radar with all this stuff. He hasn't had that year that we've seen in the last couple of years. Well, again, that Miles and Lyle thing, and all of a sudden he starts roaming around a little bit more, and he'll kill you because he's free all over the place, and he's able to get into spots in front that you think you have him and you don't. And he tied the game up. Again, we're not even 5 minutes into this game. It's 2-2. Brendan Bombery, he makes it 3-2. Lyle Thompson with just an absolute laser off a Shane Jackson feed. Shane Jackson with his second of the game, and we're only 8 minutes into the game. It's 5-2 Georgia. Defense is tightened up, and we're good for the rest of the period. Second quarter, and it's an entirely different thing. All of a sudden, Ottawa wakes up. All the guys that are supposed to be doing the scoring are doing the scoring. Jacob Dunbar, Riley O'Connor, Larson Sundown. Well, they start heating up, so what happens? Jeff Teague gets free, and he scores a pair. And all of a sudden, it's 7-5 for Ottawa, and people are going, I've seen this before. Seth Oakes gets one back with just under 5 minutes left in the half, and we're 7-6 at the half. Andrew Q ties this thing up a couple of minutes into the third quarter. We got a brand new game. Jeff Teat with his third of the game, 8-7 for Ottawa. Then Georgia turns on the tap. Miles from beside the net off a Lyle Thompson feed. It's tied. Lyle off a Brendan Bombery pass. They have the lead. Seth Oakes on a breakaway. Beautiful goal. All alone, 10-8. Brian Cole. You leave him alone because you're busy with everybody else. In transition, off a Jordan McIntosh feed. And it's 11-8 heading into the fourth. Talked about Andrew Q. You leave him alone, and what happens? He'll kill you. He opens up the scoring not 40 seconds into the fourth quarter. And it's 12-8. Now it's getting out of hand. Lyle Thompson in transition off a Joey Capito pass. Now, in the mix of all this, Joey Capito's been very silent. Well, he didn't have to do much. Now, he can join in and jump in with offense. He can be transition. He can mess up all kinds of things. Transition when it's working well. T gets one back. Seth Oakes and Henrik get the last couple of goals, and it's 15-9 final for Georgia. This team is showing, again, just how explosive it can be and scoring in bunches. It's doing what Buffalo does. You don't get one or two, you get four. And it's too hard to come back after that momentum swing. And because it looked like Ottawa had this thing figured out in a second. And Georgia just went, okay. Halftime break, reset, change everything around. And, between Secord, Como, and Sean Ferris, they come up with a plan. Let's also not forget Alex Krepensek on the bench, too, as a coach. So you have some pretty good lacrosse minds that are changing on the fly and making it all work. So, This is a scary team. And if Georgia's going to play at full strength, we have 3 teams we're talking about in that top mix. And again, we're going to be talking about that last game of the season where Buffalo plays Georgia. Just because Georgia took a couple of weeks to, heal up, I think. But I think that big thing is Miles Thompson being back at 100%, or as close to 100% as he's going to be. He adds such another dimension to this team that it frees up so many other things because of him being so accurate and such a force. And it's funny because he's a bigger guy now than when he first got hurt. But he's still chugging out there, and now he can move defenses. He's not just, one of the flyweights. So that brings up a whole new dimension when he's there in front, because he's not that easy a guy to move anymore. So that gets a little bit scary on this one. And again, Brett Dobson with 42 saves. Zach Higgins, 31 saves on a night. Not his greatest game of the year, but solid game. But Dobson, again, when it counted, he was lights out. Absolutely lights out. And we even saw a little bit of Angus Goodleaf in there near the end of the game, just for fun. Didn't really expect it, but yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'll just add real quick, a couple things. I mean, I had picked Georgia, and one of the things I had said in my pick'ems was Ottawa they can't keep relying on Jeff Teat and Zach Higgins to steal games alone. They've got to get that secondary scoring. But one thing that stood out to me, both teams scoreless on the power play. Georgia 0 for 2, Ottawa 0 for 3. So
yeah,
point of improvement. But then again, I mean, we saw Albany get to the finals last year with one of the worst power play units of seemingly ever. Yeah. All of NLL history. So,
and funny enough, Ottawa was 20-8 on faceoffs. So again, with this, how important is it? Well, not if you have a really solid stifling defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Jeremy Thompson didn't have that good a night at the Dot. All right, let's move on. We head over into the next night, and our main event of the evening was Buffalo, Saskatchewan, and as we know, Buffalo comes from behind, as seems to be their MO now. Vince stops 41, Burns scores twice, and Mans gets 4 goals in the loss. But Buffalo down again, 5-2, and seemingly flailing away, and all of a sudden, chip piece by piece by piece.
Yeah, it's funny. I know talking to Derek Keenan after the game, it was a game he kind of expected in the fact that this went punch for punch, this game. It was close, right down to the last minute. But what you didn't expect is that low of a scoring game, especially with these two offenses. You hate to say moral victories here, but the fact that the Rush only held the Bandits 9 goals, I mean, there's not very many teams out there that can do that, especially with that offense that Buffalo has. And really the difference came down to that second half where, I mean, the defense just tightened up for Buffalo. And I mean, no matter what the Rush did, they just could not get inside for the life of them. They tried. Lord, they tried, and they couldn't. And then Matt Vince was Matt Vince. Plain and simple. Couple of notes, though. I mean, the Rush are also without Robert Church. He's on the short-term holdout. Not quite sure how long that is. I think his wife is having a baby. Can't confirm that, though, so that's why he could be potentially out of the lineup. Other thing, we were talking about power plays. The Rush were 1 for 5. You're not going to beat Buffalo if you can't get your power play going, and that's been an issue with
taking penalties. If you let them off the hook, you're playing with fire.
Yeah, and that's been for the most part. They've had a couple of games where their power plays clicked, but for the most part, the Rush's power play has struggled this year, and that could be their Achilles heel through all this.
Right. Yeah, it's also, you know, the the Nanacoke factor. He was the killer in the third quarter.
Yeah.
You know, leave him alone in front, and again, he's going to do something in this game, and it just took him a while to do it. And transition. Nick Weiss again, Justin Martin, both. Nothing cheap, but wow, you know, when it comes time to get these things. But Zach Mann said it himself. I have the clip that I'm going to play in a second. When you score 6 or 7 goals, you're not winning any games.
Yeah.
They have to find a way to score. Why don't we listen to Derek Keenan, and he'll talk about the game.
I thought we competed really, really hard. They're obviously a very good team. They're the benchmark in this league. And to be honest, like it was not the type of game I expected. I thought it'd be a lot more high scoring, based on both teams' offenses. But both defenses played extremely well. Both goaltenders played really well, and they made a few more plays. It was a frustrating night for us on offense. You know, they block a lot of shots, get in shooting lanes, make it difficult to get into the middle. And I mean, it wasn't for lack of effort, though. The guys really tried to execute our offense, but it was difficult. And 1 for 5 on the power play hurt. You know, we had to be better there. And obviously we missed Robert, but you know what? We did okay with him earlier in the season for a couple games, so that's not going to be an excuse for us. But it was a good lacrosse game. It was physical. Like I said, they're a very good team. I thought we did a good job on their offense, given the talent and the depth they have. So, but it was a good game, and again, not what I expected in terms of the numbers of goals scored. But our guys, I fought hard right to the very end.
I guess that's it. I don't think many teams in this league can keep this Buffalo team to 9 goals.
They were both really good. I mean, I thought we were able to play our defense against them and be aggressive and pressure and put them into some bad spots at times. But again, they have some guys that can make plays, and that's what they did. So, but you know, to keep them to 9, 1 being an empty netter is a pretty good performance by our defense. But we just needed to be better on offense, just as simple as that.
Josh Slaght back in the lineup. How's he progressing?
He's good. Yeah, I mean, you know, he got a goal early, which he did kind of in his first game way back in Rochester, and he's got great feet. He's quick, shoots the ball well, and you know, he's a nice guy to have for depth. And he's young too, so he's got a good future ahead with this team.
Was there any message in the locker room knowing that you'd be without Church?
Not really, no. I mean, hey, we were without him earlier in the season for a couple games, and we won 1 and lost 1 in overtime. So obviously we missed him. You know, I think we missed him on the power play. We missed his leadership. You know, just little things like that. But hey, like I said, we got depth, and we've got more depth now on the offensive end and the defensive end than we've had in years. So you know, even right now, we're not really at full strength in the back end, but guys come in and play really well. And that's good to see. And we'll regroup. We got another tough one next week on the road in Georgia. They're a very good team. Similar physical defense to these guys, and but we'll be ready to go.
And then Zach Mance, who had 4 goals in the game, he had this to say.
They're at the top of the standings for a reason, and have been in those big games year after year. They're a tough team to beat. I thought the effort was good, but just execution-wise in that second half, didn't really get it done, and they, especially on defense, they walled up, and they've stopped us from getting good looks. So credit to them, but we'll be back.
What happened that second half? It seemed like they just kind of tightened up a little bit. Was there something they were doing differently?
I think it was more so us kind of falling away from the things that we were getting good looks from. We were getting successful looks. Just always got a full 60, getting through the middle is the biggest thing. I thought there was a point in time where we were all kind of standing around a few shifts in a row, and I mean, that's not going to get it done against those guys.
Or is it with the defense on the other end of the floor, at least helping you keep the game going along and goals?
Yeah, no, that was like, you can't ask for more from our defense and Frank. I thought they put together a pretty damn good game. I mean, it's up to us to put more than what we score 7 goals. That's not good enough. 6 goals in 59 minutes, not going to win you any game.
How much did you miss Robert Church up there?
Yeah, I mean, he's a big part of our offense. I think he's the best shooter there is in lacrosse. He's missed, but I mean, I thought we had a lineup tonight that could still get it done, to be honest.
I don't think it was all negative tonight. Is there any positives that you guys can take away from tonight that you can take over for next week?
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was like a perfect time to play those guys. Kind of at like a 2-3 point in the year. Kind of get to see where we stack up against them, and I think we know the areas that we need to get better at.
Just your thoughts on Josh Slaght, who's been lapped a couple times now when he knows the rookie. Looks like he's continuing improving each game.
Yeah. I mean, that's a guy that's stuck with it all year. I think that was his second game he got in. He's had a great attitude all year. Every weekend, he's got really tough travel to get here, so we appreciate him sticking with it. And yeah, I mean, we're all confident in him. He's a great player. He's got great feet. I think what I'm most impressed by him is he knows what to be for a rookie, and especially being an American, not having a ton of box experience. He's an easy guy to play with, and those are guys that you want in your lineup.
Well, it says it all. So, when they meet up again, and they will meet up again in the playoffs, it'll be in Bandit Land. So, I had a little bit nuttier with 19,000 people spell counting, doing all that fun Bandit stuff.
Okay.
I always feel smarter in there, you know.
So the counting and the spelling, yeah.
All blocks, and I can count without having to take my shoe. It's great. Practice. Alrighty, let's move on. We go into the later games on Saturday. First one is Colorado against Calgary. Now, this is the first one with Nick Rose as a goalie in Calgary. Eli McLaughlin leads the Mammoth with a big home win. Cook scores 3 and a loss. But
yeah, and similar to that Georgia-Ottawa game, both teams 0 for on the power play. Calgary went 0 for 5 on the power play. Colorado 0 for 2. So, shout out to penalty kill units around the league. Yes, their job at least this week. Yeah, for Colorado, getting some secondary scoring really in this win. Eli McLaughlin had 4 goals and an assist. Ryan Lee had 2 and 5. Thomas Vela and Will Malcolm both had 2 goals and an assist. Connor Robinson 5 assists. And then to Gary's point again, Calgary 15 of 23 on the faceoffs, but just didn't seem to be in their favor. Besides Tanner Cook's hat trick, you had Curtis Dixon and Tyler Pace each with 2 goals and 2 assists, and then Dane Doby with a goal.
Very late.
And Hayden Dixon with 3 assists. Again, Rose did make 46 saves in the loss. Dylan Ward 49 saves in the win. So,
if this game would have stopped after 3 quarters, I would have thought Dylan Ward was 15 years younger. And then as Colorado started mailing it in the fourth, Calgary started catching up in the fourth, which just goes to show you is you cannot take a quarter off because this thing goes a little longer. And really, Colorado really didn't look that interested in the fourth.
Yeah.
And, Calgary made them pay. Simple. Right down to the very end. But you're up, I guess, you're up by 5, and, you got to have everything going your way all night long. They never really let Calgary get too close that it would become an issue. But, again, I think of if you're playing a team like a Buffalo or Saskatchewan or even Georgia for that matter, I don't think I would want to leave that opening up Pandora's box to try and play with fire.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because just looking at neither of these teams have easy roads the rest of the way. Obviously, the win, puts Colorado at 7 and 5. Calgary drops to 6 and 6. But here's what Calgary has ahead of them. They have a home and home with Buffalo. Then they host San Diego. They're at Saskatchewan, at Las Vegas, and then they finish hosting Colorado. So these teams are going to meet again in week 21. Colorado doesn't have it very easy either. The rest of their schedule at Philadelphia, at Ottawa, at Saskatchewan, hosting Buffalo, then hosting Saskatchewan, then at Calgary. So, 7-5 and 6-6 right now look decent. We've kind of said all season we're pretty sure 9-9 is going to get you in. 8-10 might get you in. So, but at the same time, you don't want to be playing 500 ball over the final third of the season, just to get in.
And just looking at that schedule too, that Calgary Colorado game at the end of the year, that could be a win and you're in, losing you're out scenario.
Yeah. Yep. And that should scare Colorado fans. I mean, there's that whole decade and a half of the Calgary curse. It's been broken in recent years, but
yeah. That goes back as long as I can think about it,
So,
way back into the divisions, into two different incarnations of divisions at that.
Yeah, so the onus is really going to be on both teams to kind of get business done over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and get the wins you need to to make sure you're in a good enough position that if you slump over the final, if you slump in April after having a great March, you still have you're still giving yourself a decent shot to make the postseason.
Absolutely. All right, we still have one last game, and again, this is the one that hurt me on the who you got, because it was a pitcher's duel where Halifax, the juggernaut who scores buckets and buckets of goals, beats Las Vegas 9-5. Jameson scores his 350th career goal. Hill makes 41 saves to lead Halifax to his 5th straight victory. Well, looking at this game, there wasn't a whole lot to really look at the beginning. It was back and forth, but not a whole lot of anything going on either side. Interestingly enough, this was Tyson Bell's first game back. He will have made an impact later in the game. But Thomas Hogarth converts a Randy Stotts pass about 10 minutes into the game, and that was the first bit of scoring in this game. Colton Armstrong, with a couple of minutes left in it, in transition off a Terefenko pass, 2-0. And that's the way it ended. Nothing across the board for Las Vegas. All that talent, and they can't score. Absolutely is mind-boggling. When you look at this roster, this shouldn't be happening. In fact, the only goal they got in the first half was a Jackson goal, his first NLL goal in transition, unassisted. Cody Jamieson gets one, as well as Knox gets one, and it's 4-1 at the half. But very mediocre to uninteresting game. The third quarter, things get a little bit more interesting, but not that much. Yeah, this goal was interesting, eh? Cole Kirst beating his brother, and he turned him inside out off a Clark Peterson pass, 5-1. Holden Katoni, again, like I say, if he wasn't there, I don't think they would have had any offense from the offense. First goal is a Las Vegas Desert Dog off a Jack Hanna pass. Clark Peterson gets one. It's another beauty. Followed by Terefenko all alone. Going in all alone, gorgeous goal. Jonathan Donville, here's a name we don't say very much anymore. On the power play off Holden Katoni pass with, it says 1 second on it, but really it was 0.01 seconds left there. It was so close. It was ridiculous. Fourth quarter, Katoni again on the power play, and it's 7-4. And look at that, we have a game. No, we don't. Cody Jamieson, 8-4 on the power play. Another one of those high to low bounce shots that just absolutely turn Kells inside out. Brandon Goodwin gets one. And then Warren Hill tries for the goalie goal. Empty net, just under 2 minutes left. Fires what looked to be a strike, a Nick Rose type of strike. Hits the post. Tyson Bell happens to be there and deposits it into the empty net. And that would be your 9-5 game. Was there much of anything to discuss in this? Other than both teams did much of nothing? Not really. This had to be
I guess you can give kudos on Randy Kells for holding Halifax under 10.
Yeah, but he had no help. No help on the other end. None whatsoever.
He made 52 saves in this game. He was the busiest guy on the floor by a long shot. But really, I just am baffled by this Las Vegas team. This is the same team that beat Colorado like a drum last week, 14-7. How did it go so wrong in 6.5 days?
Yeah.
The only theory I said, the only theory I had last week was that knowing your coach is on the hot seat, but that usually doesn't last.
Hey, Brian. No, I'm baffled with it. I really am. I can't figure it out. I've thought about it. I'd spent a bit of time today trying to figure it out. I'm looking at their lineup. It's not like anybody was out, and they just cannot fire up the offense.
And you added to that offense with Holden Katoni, and well, he was actually the only one who did anything. Yeah.
Without him there, really, what do you got? Take away his 2 goals. You had Josh Jackson with his first career goal, Brandon Goodwin, and Jonathan Donville. Donville's the only offensive guy there.
Yeah.
That's wild. And I'm looking at, Casey Jackson. You're looking at Jack Hanna, Sean Wesley, Kyle Killen, Jackson Webster's had some great games. Absolutely absent. I can't figure it out why this team can't move ahead. And I'm sure Sean Williams is banging his head off the wall too.
That's the thing.
Paper, this is a great lineup.
Again, Sean might be banging his head. I guess we go back. Is he on the hot seat?
In his defense, though, I look at the lineup going, how? How is it that these guys just can't get it together with each other? It's the old Victor Borga line. Every one of the musicians is a virtuoso in their own time. It's only when they get together they have all the trouble. Well, case in point. You have all this talent with all these accolades all over the place. And like Drew Belgrave, I expect a lot more out of him. Even in transition, he was a gazelle when he played for Toronto and when he played for San Diego. All of a sudden, he's silent. 2 shots on net, 6 loose balls. David Brock, he always was in on transition when he was in Toronto. Silent as a mouse. Poitras, he might as well have bought a ticket. If you're going to watch the game, you might as well sit up there with us. It just baffles me. Hannah, 2 assists when what I'm looking for you is 4 goals. Like when you came into the league. I can't.
Well,
Dylan Hutchison.
On the flip side, this is working in Toronto's favor.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is. Every time they have a bad game, their stock goes up.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule, this isn't exactly a cakewalk either. Hosting Rochester, at San Diego, at Buffalo, then hosting Toronto, at Ottawa, and Calgary to finish. So
It's interesting they're hosting Toronto. I thought they were supposed to be alternate years, and I know that they played in Las Vegas last year because this is the weekend that I was in San Diego, and Toronto did the Vegas San Diego thing last year. This was me trying to get back and texting you guys from an airplane after it was delayed, trying to get the show going on time.
And that might be it is. So week 21, there's 8 games, and Toronto and Calgary have double headers. So that Toronto, the hosting Toronto and the Calgary game, that's I think week 21, and then no, I'm sorry, that game is week 19. I was looking at the wrong week. But Calgary and Toronto have double headers week 21. So
okay,
that Calgary game with Vegas will be final week, as well as their game with Colorado. So
all right. Yeah, because Toronto has Vegas, has Halifax, and then Rochester in that weekend. Would you help us?
Yeah.
Just before I head off to Prague, I will be in Rochester for that. And I'll be in Mississauga for the game before. Yeah. Putting on the miles. Hold that 2 goals, Brian. 2 goals. Of the 5 that Las Vegas scored. He had an assist to go with it. So 3 of the points. 3 of the 5.
I was looking back to 2 of those goals out of the 5 were on the power play. So they weren't even-handed. They were special teams goals.
Jeez.
Gets better.
Someone's power play's working.
Yeah, that's about all it's working.
Remember, the Donville goal came with a second left in the third quarter at that. So
Sure, yeah.
quarter of a second the other way, and it didn't count. So again, I just keep looking at this going, where is the offense in this team? And then I can't possibly, if you really want to put Sean Williams on the hot seat, he starts being a seller again at the trade deadline, and then ownership has to look going, what in the heck is going on? Every year we're selling. Why are we not buying at some point?
Well, not the problem is, like you said, you have all that talent. What's the answer? How do you fix that?
If I knew that, I'd be drawing a check from them.
Yeah. That's the $1,000,000 question, right? Like, and because you have the talent there, but talent's not doing it, and you can't blow it apart. What do? You're handcuffed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me. Maybe you can blow it apart, and I had wanted to mention this earlier when we were talking about all the trades and just noticing the different situations that teams were in, where you have Toronto can afford to get rid of veteran guys in exchange for draft picks with the possibility that they can pretty much rebuild through the draft. But Toronto has that unique situation where they're a location where they can pull in veteran free agents. On the flip side, you have Albany, who pretty much has, other than Crawford and maybe Colton Watkinson, no UFAs. They're not going to have any UFAs after the season, other than Crawford and, like I said, possibly Watkinson. Mm-hmm. So Albany has young players that they could trade for veterans, which is kind of unique. I can't even think of any other team that's in that situation that could trade young players for veterans. I know it's generational talent. I know they don't want to get rid of them, but maybe, I mean, they're pretty good trade partners they've been pretty good trade partners with Vegas. Maybe Albany was looking at, maybe Albany acquired Kyle Jackson because maybe instead of Powless, maybe they're going to deal Dyson Williams and get some vets in return. for next year. It's a long shot, but
I just think he's so highly touted.
I'm not saying
Yeah, I think
I'm
you're
not saying
building.
I agree with it.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying Albany is in a very unique position that no other team is in. Because again, we mentioned Albany's one of those teams that the only other team I think besides Georgia that pretty much retained their roster, their entire roster, which is unheard of
yeah.
in the off season. But unlike
That's what I think.
Georgia,
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I
you've got
see
all
Albany.
young players, and you've got guys that you pretty much have under team control. They can't reject franchise tags. You know, they can't just walk.
That's where it's tough, I think, in Albany because they're not in that situation like Toronto where they can basically have rental players to pick up draft picks. If they trade off a guy, he's gone. There's no chance of getting him back, or it's highly unlikely you're going to get him back. And in some ways, it's similar to Las Vegas. The talent's there, just for some reason they can't put it together. But I think Albany is just going through those growing pains of having a young team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Whereas Las Vegas, they have veterans. They have Belgrave, Drew, David.
I can understand Albany's played. I can't understand Vegas's played. I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around why they're underperforming so badly, so consistently. And then every time you think it's an absolute write-off, they come up with this game like they did with Colorado and win 14-7. Or they shock San Diego or somebody else in that realm. And then they go back to what they were doing and get, come up with a 5-goal performance. And just doesn't, but there just wasn't a whole lot of interest in this game. I didn't feel the energy on either side watching this thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I
I'm a sucker for all lacrosse. I'll watch everything to the very bitter end. And I was looking at turning the thing off. That's how uninterested it was.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you have to put him back on the hot seat because.
Well, sorry, Mike, not to interrupt you because I agree with the hot seat. If there's someone interested, has he lost the locker room?
And who's coming in? Who do you have to replace him?
And that's the other
thing, yeah.
Because we've I mean, how many times have we done this with the Rochester and Colorado fan bases, where it's Fire Hayes and Fire Coyle, and it's like, okay, who's going to replace him? Who are you going to find out there? There's plenty of coaching, but there's also there's also kind of a dearth of coaching, at least at that level. So, I mean, not to throw another, but.
Or does he do what
going over to PLL? Look at what happened with the Water Dogs when Andy Copeland.
Does he do what they did in Philadelphia, and he takes the GM job and concentrates on that and puts somebody else in as a coach?
That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean it's a possibility. I guess I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it from the perspective of ownership. And looks like you're heading. Let's say they win a couple more games. Now you're 5-13 again, and this is like the third straight season that you're 5-13, and you've made tons and tons of personnel changes over the past 3 years, and you keep ending up with the exact same record.
Well, and that's the thing. I look over to Saskatchewan and what Derek Keenan's done. He's shown that you can turn a team around quickly if you make the right moves.
Yep.
Las Vegas really hasn't showed that.
That's the thing. The right moves. And Keenan had to switch a few things up, including him going behind the bench again to make it work. Because he was pretty happy up in the booth too, right?
Yeah.
As a GM, but came back down to be a co-coach because things weren't going as rosy as expected. And then as soon as he came down, steadied the ship, and it's been rosy ever since. And with a few extra moves and things like that.
And I think he's maybe put himself in a position where this season where he could go back to the booth next year if he wanted to, and things would still be just fine.
Yeah. I think you can't discount Jimmy Quinlan. I know it's not fair to compare a guy like Shawn Williams to Derek Keenan. I mean, he's a mad genius, Keenan, let's face it. But I'm sure there's other teams you could look at too where they've made quick turnarounds. It's not impossible. Yet, like Mike said, year after year we're seeing 5-13, 5-13. Why isn't this improving?
And Shawn Williams is one on every level. So why is this one the one that's just the kryptonite? Like I said, I just can't see it. Now, again, we know that if he steps away and somebody else is and it improves, we know it was the issue.
Yeah.
But I seriously think that he should be taking the GM role and let somebody else do the coaching and move on from there, because it isn't working like this. Something has to give somewhere.
No, I think that's a very good point, Gary, that you made that I didn't even think of, because maybe it is just too much. And he needs to take a step back. Again, looking at other teams, Philadelphia, when Paul Dace took a step back, things have looked a lot better. Maybe that's just too much.
Yeah, and I mean, it was, the criticism was more when they were in New England, but Glenn Clark also has the GM role as well as the head coach role, and there was certainly concern among the fan base when Rich List departed, for what at the time was the Riptide. That, hey, can he handle both roles? Obviously last year certainly wasn't an issue, making the finals. So
right.
Yeah.
And certainly the year before that with, the big rebuild and all the injuries, you can't really necessarily blame that on personnel moves. So.
Yeah. All right. So looking ahead to next week, we have 6 games. Toronto is in Halifax on Friday, as well as Rochester into Vegas, another tough one for Vegas. And Vancouver and San Diego in the late game Friday night. That's going to be a good game. Saturday, the 3 games are Calgary, Buffalo in Buffalo, Albany and Philadelphia in the rematch, and Saskatchewan and Georgia. And that's another one that's just going to be a circle on the calendar because, wow, that's a hell of a game. So there's some interesting games coming around, and that's a good one to see for me to see where Georgia's at, because this is a real big test, and also see how Saskatchewan bounces back after this weekend, which I don't really see as an issue, but just in case. So, but a reminder to everybody that we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're through X, we're on Thread, we're on YouTube, as well as on streampunkentertainment.com. So please check us out in one of those facets a few times a day, because the news is always changing. It's going to be an interesting week with the trade deadline. Please check out our Facebook page as often as you like, because we will have it as soon as we know it, and we're pretty up to date with everything. So that being said, it brings us over to last words. Shawn, let's start with you this week.
Yeah, really looking forward to next week. And like you mentioned, the Georgia-Saskatchewan game is going to be a good one. And I know Saskatchewan has 3 losses, but they haven't had any secessions and losses yet, losing 2 in a row. So they seem to be able to bounce back pretty quick. And again, I don't think they have anything to hang their heads about against that Buffalo game, even though they lost. They gave one of the best teams in the league a run for their money.
Absolutely. Mike, last words to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that Vancouver San Diego game. I think that is huge. It's not only second of 2 meetings. It's a chance for Vancouver, really, kind of to get a key head-to-head tiebreaker and to kind of jump back and jump ahead of that group of teams at or just below 500.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Me personally, I'm curious to see the Rock bounce back after all these moves and whatever in the heck happens in this week coming as they travel over to Halifax. And I'm curious to see what kind of Halifax team shows up, because I hope it's just for interest's sake. It's different than the one I watched yesterday, because that was a very uninteresting team that I watched yesterday. And, of course, as Toronto drops in the standings, the draft pick. So it's a win-win. Either way, it's either I get a good game or I get a good draft pick. But it's going to be more interesting as the season goes along if they are complete sellers and nothing's working right. That it puts us in a position in this city that we're not used to, of being
having draft picks.
Well, not you having draft picks, sure, but being cheering for the loss. When it's more of a cheer.
Hey, you're going to be cheering for Vegas to lose too.
Vegas to lose too. Yeah.
And not only to lose, but I mean, it's going to be Rochester, and who would have thought if Rochester wins that game, they're 500, 7-7.
Yep.
That's a good Rochester team, though. Watch out for them.
We certainly weren't talking about that a month ago.
Yeah.
I had Rochester in the playoffs, if I remember right.
I believe so.
So I thought they made the right moves in the offseason, and then just injuries, and of course Hartley being out and a few other things going on. It just didn't seem to be working. But boy, they've certainly turned the corner. And like I said in my pick'ems this past week, it seems as though this time around they have it figured out. And they certainly didn't make me a liar this past weekend, as they just like a government mule, they beat Albany.
Actually, I do have to correct you. You did not have Rochester making the playoffs in the preseason.
I did not.
Shawn and Pat picked them, though.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I had Toronto.
Yeah.
We did. We all did.
We all did, sadly. We also all had Albany.
Oh, well. It's a good thing I didn't put it on the Bet365 long-term one. Got money and fold that in my pocket. But anyways, just a reminder, next week is daylight savings time. Sorry, Shawn, that changes things for you.
That just changes things, yeah.
Doesn't observe it,
You crazy people changing your clocks around.
I like daylight, man. It's dark. I think we should just, once we change it, we should throw away the key and keep it, because daylight's a good thing. I like to keep it in the daytime, really. But yeah, so daylight savings time is next Sunday morning, Saturday night for y'all, partiers. So by the time our show is on, we have sprung forward, which means that 8 o'clock would be 9 o'clock on your clocks. So if you haven't changed it and can't find us, we'll be on in the next hour. But we will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So just throwing another letter in there. Until then, for Shawn Slaght in Moose Jaw, and for Muffler Mike over in Connecticut, I'm Gary Groob, wishing you the best of weeks. And just remember to keep your sticks high and your spirits higher. And until we meet again, have yourself a great week. See you next week.